One. All right, we're live. Hello, everybody. Special guest today. Big Ray's first comment. There we go. I love it. We are here with the one, the only, literally the one and the only. There is no one doing the type of content that this guy does on the internet. One of the most informative channels in the world, really puts a lot of effort into his videos, and you can tell it's like a spaceship journey you're in as his video starts playing. Tickersymbolyou, thank you for joining the podcast. Happy you were here. We want to get your thoughts on a lot of things, including Palantir. But before Palantir, we got to get into just generally, how are you doing as we got through one of the worst weeks in 2022?
Sure, I'm doing great. You know, when it's a seller's market, I'm a seller. When it's a buyer's market, I'm a buyer, right? So I guess I'm a buyer right now.
Ark is the main fund that you track, Ark Innovation, and you've been doing that for about almost 2 years now, year and a half. They've been down pretty badly, but from what I've seen, they're getting about $1.5 billion more of inflows. Can you kind of make sense of the macro level thesis around Ark, why they're still getting inflows, and do you think Kathy can still get this 40% CAGR? I know I threw a lot at you, so just dice it up however you want.
Yeah. Let's take that one step at a time. First of all, let me back up. It's great to be here. I'm always super excited to talk about Ark Invest, Palantir, and all of the other topics we're going to get into. That being said, you know, let's talk about Ark Invest, because I know there's a lot of like shaky conviction out there and a lot of kind of mismatched expectations, right? So 40% CAGR, I have no idea. Like, I know I'm wearing an Ark Invest t-shirt right now, but you know, I can't predict the future any more than they can. But basically how their funds work at a high level. So let's tackle CAGR first, compound annual growth rate. They predict they try to have this minimum hurdle rate of return of 15% per year, right? So doubling every 5 years. And so back in like February or January of 2021, so like 15 months ago at their peak, they were still buying stocks, right? So the stocks that they were buying implies they thought that those stocks could double from that peak over the next 5 years. The first big misconception is that the stocks will go up and to the right only, right? So, you know, we've obviously gone basically just down and to the right over the last 15 months if you're a growth stock holder, Ark Invest holder, and definitely since November, like basically straight down and to the right for sure. So now the implication there is the stocks that she was buying 15 months ago, they've dropped by a factor of 5. You know, so now they not only will 2x, they'll like 10x, right? And Kathy Wood has literally gone on the record saying she expects Teledoc, which I'm sure we'll get into in the future, to 10x from these prices, literally from $35 to $350 per share, not including things like dilution. Like, she's on the record on TV saying that, right? I don't know if I generally believe exactly that math, right? Like, no one can predict 5 years, 4 years, 6 years. But the special thing about Kathy Wood's funds are how they come to those conclusions. Their analysts do a very different job than traditional Wall Street analysts, and they see a lot of things that traditional Wall Street analysts don't see, like the value of big data, like how these platforms come together and sort of empower a whole wide group of different users. In Teledoc's case, that would be clinics, hospitals, patients, doctors, insurers, right? Like all these different groups that aren't in the business of building this like medically certified tech stack. You know, Teladoc kind of takes that for them. So they've got this like fresh take, right? So let me pause there, because that's probably the good CAGR component, and I'll answer whatever questions you have around that before moving on to the other one.
Why did Ark not sell Shopify at 1,700 and Tdoc at 300? Like, is their research team that naive? And I don't say that in a condescending way, but I'm just like, did they really think it was just going to keep going? Did they not understand how overinflated when a picture of a rock is selling for $4 million? Like, is that a thesis breaker already on the team itself, that the analysts are too young, they just don't get it? Or how do you think of that?
Yeah, well, so
I was going to say, well, Amit, that's a bit of an unfair criticism of them only for
no, it's not.
reason.
I'm not saying I get the whole market crash. I'm just saying you have a stock at all-time highs and you're not taking any profits.
Well, that's the thing. What do you consider what do you consider an all-time high? Because you know what? They had an all-time high every
$1,700.
single day. No, I'm just saying every single day of 2001 was an all-time high. Imagine they had sold in January of 2001. They would have missed the all-time high in February. They would have missed the all-time high in March. They would have missed the all-time high in April. No one
Yeah, but
can
my point
predict
is,
what
like,
an all-time high is.
if she is such a, and I watched In the Know religiously back in December, January, if she understood the macro at such a deep level with supply chains, inflations, they were just wrong on the time period, right? They knew there was like this issue coming. They were just wrong with the transitory stuff. I guess my question simply is, it's not just another hedge fund that's going to just keep accumulating these assets. And then, like, to me, it's insane to think that we don't sell Shopify at 1,700 because it's going to get to 3,400. Now, it's easy to say that in hindsight, but if you're paying hundreds, they make a 2% fee off the assets under management. Like the LPs that give them their money, or the banks, they pay them to be smart enough to know when to mitigate some risk and to sell. So I understand not everyone's perfect, but my question is, if you have these growth stocks that are artificially pumped, and you know they're artificially pumped because of liquidity, and you're not selling, like, does that make you feel like it's a little hard to trust them anymore?
But Amit, it goes back to what would they have done if they had just sold? Let's say they sold Shopify.
They would buy
right?
GM like they're doing now.
You see, that's the whole point that I'm trying to say. That right now, I would actually like to ask Alex, like, what is the purpose of trying to go from innovation to something that's more legacy? Like, so when they stayed in Teladoc, they stayed in all these innovation companies, they have this innovation thesis that's built for the next 5 years, right? For them, if they sold out of their positions, right, that's almost like confirming that, hey, we're at the top. That's it. There's no more innovation. You know, we can't live by our own thesis anymore. And what would they have gone into? A cash position? In which case people would have said, wait, I'm just investing in Kathy Wood.
Right.
So she just holds on to cash. I could just pull my cash right now.
60% of the fund.
Yeah, but so hold on, because this is a really important point too. They actually can't go into cash, right? Like, one of the rules of ETFs, fully invested, actively managed ETFs, is like they can't hold cash. So at best, they would be holding these cash-like positions. And then we can argue that they are breaking their other thesis, which is this 15% minimum hurdle rate of return. So it's like part of they have structured their funds in a way where they've written themselves into a corner, right? The only thing we can do, the only thing we will take your money and do with it is invest aggressively in innovation and try to get you the best 5-year returns, right? I agree with you, Amit, in the sense that 5 years is a slippery slope, because it's a rolling 5-year window. Every day, that window adjusts by a day because they make new investment decisions that day, right? So, like, for sure, the strategy is hard to follow. And so that's kind of why Tickersymbolyou in my channel, like, exists at all, is because here's this fund manager who thinks very, very differently from the rest of the market. She makes moves every single day, which is very different from guys like Michael Burry, Warren Buffett, right? Like, you know, she's this great investor in good times and seemingly a terrible investor in bad times, right? It's like the sentiment of your analysis, I would say, right? Like, the thesis is clearly busted. She's gone down 66%, if not 75% in some of her funds. She's not managing risk. So let me explain why that thesis is wrong. And it's not because it's a bad thesis. It's because the ARK funds are specialty products. They're not meant to maximize your returns. They're meant to expose your portfolio to innovation as a niche product, right? So what does a retirement fund do? You know, they're all in value stocks. They're trying to be very non-aggressive. They're trying to invest in decent, modest returns at low risk, right? But the market's choppy and economic conditions are always changing. COVID happens, technology takes over. What do those big, giant, safe pension funds want to do? They want to expose their funds to a little bit of innovation, right? And what that really means, like, you know, in investor terms, in like not interesting, cool technology Tesla terms, is they want to diversify away from the indexes. How do you do that? Like, are they about to become stock pickers and pick the next Tesla, the next Teladoc, and avoid the next Peloton and the next Skills Gaming and the next, you know, whatever, like, kind of stocks that ended up not being great businesses under the hood? No, they're going to trust somebody who's made an entire business out of only innovation. What are they going to do? They're going to take 1% of their massive portfolio and put it in ARK, and that's it, right? Like, so the Ark Invest funds are meant to be slotted in strategically into all of these other portfolios. You're not meant to take 80% of your portfolio and make it ARK, right? Like, there's a reason the indexes are the indexes. Like, Google's a great stock, guys. You know, Nvidia's a great stock. Like, Kathy consciously doesn't choose those stocks, so you have a chance to have your cake and eat it too by buying Nvidia stock. In my opinion, great stock. Not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And ARK, right, which like has Tesla at the top, Teladoc, and whatever. You can do both of those things, but Kathy Wood clearly isn't doing both for you, right?
But the thing I'm confused about is I get its exposure to growth, but if someone buys in at 150 and then they go down to 45 and they don't know if they're ever going to get back to 150, their exposure to growth like screwed them over because this person didn't take profits at the top like a good fund manager theoretically should.
No.
So
She's
like,
not there to take profits. She's there to expose you to growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta get wait, but she's taking profits on Tesla for a reason. I understand 10% of the fund, but she also thinks, oh shit, like we made a decent amount of money on this. Correct?
Nope.
Is there any disagreement?
Incorrect. No, there is, because the reason she's taking profits on Tesla is because she thinks there's a better opportunity somewhere else in her fund. She thinks it has a lower future rate of returns. You don't know that the dollars she took out of Tesla went to GM. You don't know that, right? Like,
she literally
it could have been a stock
Tesla
she bailed out of.
on the same day she buys GM. Like,
yep, and you don't know which shares of Tesla she sold, right? Like,
no, I get it. I'm not trying to be super technical or like idiosyncratic here. I'm just saying that if Shopify's at 1,700 and you're paying your analysts hundreds of millions of dollars in percentage fees, they can't come to the conclusion. And again, I'm not as smart as them. I get it. I'm just saying, if they're getting paid that much money, they can come to the conclusion saying, oh shit, the Fed's going to do quantitative tightening. Eventually rates are going to go up. Inflation is not transitory. That's what they're paid to do. We should probably take a little bit, just like they're doing with Tesla. They're taking some of Tesla at $1,000 a share, right? $1 trillion.
And put it where? Like,
Coinbase or whatever. But my point is they took the profit. Like, why can't they do that with some of the other big names as well?
It's kind of like this wishy-washy thing, right? So I agree with you as an investor who can have a large cash position. I was prudent. I took a lot of money off the table. Besides starting the portfolio that I ran for my channel, I actually took a lot of money off the table in October, September. I didn't time the top. I'm not smart enough to do that. November was still a good month, and then it went way down, right? The writing was on the wall. I think we all listened to the same few podcasts, and everyone was talking about, like, Elon Musk said he was out, right? He was selling Tesla shares, so there was a lot of writing on the wall. And I agree with you personally, right? Like, if I had all the power in the world, what would I do? Like, and I was a Berkshire Hathaway, right? What did Warren Buffett do? He had a huge cash position. Totally. That's it. I'm not smarter than Warren Buffett. If that's what he's doing, that's what I'm doing, right? Like, but Kathy Wood can't do that. She can't hold a giant cash position. So is there a
structural problem to owning that fund then if she has to buy at the top and literally never sell?
Yes, and that's why you shouldn't. Yes, that's why you shouldn't hold that fund. 90% of your portfolio shouldn't be that fund. It should be the amount of your portfolio you want exposed to long-term innovation, not growth. They happen to be growth companies. Like, that's one of those like stock factors that we can break things up by, right? 30% or more revenue growth, high growth company. But that's not what her funds are designed for. She's not a growth investor. That's like that's a category of stock, right? She's 6 kinds of investors, right? She's a genomics investor in ARKG, autonomy and robotics, blockchain technology and fintech, right? Energy storage. There's probably some space exploration in there now between ARKX and ARKQ. And then, like, whatever general bucket we're putting in, artificial intelligence, automation, the Palantirs of the world, right? Like, That's what her research team is set up to do. And guess what? In some of those really awesome innovation sectors, there may not be a really good fit stock-wise for your portfolio. Genomics is a really great example of, like, yeah, there's a lot of gene sequencing and editing stuff coming down the pipe, but between regulations, clinical trials, lack of funding right now when liquidity is tight, like all these other things, there might not be a lot of great genomics businesses in the public market to put your money behind. So what does ARKG do? ARKG, it gets filled up with stocks like Teladoc, right? Which isn't really a genomics company, but is like as close to a near peer as you can get to expose your portfolio to that strategy, right? So like try not to think about growth versus value, and try to think about like innovation platform versus legacy way of doing things, right? Digital wallet versus brick and mortar bank. Like that's what she's trying to get your portfolio in, right? Like out of the, Bank of
Google,
America,
Apple,
Chase,
yeah.
and into the, Squares, PayPal's of the world, right? That's ArkF is what I'm talking about right now. Does that make like a little bit of sense?
Yeah, that makes total sense. That's one of the reasons why I like Kathy Wood and the way that she's actually set up the ARK funds, because it's a family of funds. It's not one of those things where, hey, we're just going to have everything going to one fund and that's it. And
Yeah.
every ETF, for the most part, it's a family of funds depending on which side you want to be invested in. So right now, I don't believe in the genomics revolution, but I do believe in the AI revolution. So guess what? I'm going to actually be able
ArkW.
to go right into into Ark W and skip over
Yeah.
Ark G, right? So it's a family of funds that we have to keep in mind. And actually, when we're investing, invest like that. But here's the thing. There are times where some industries are going to grow way beyond and some are not. And that's where each person has to take personal responsibility. And at least at a bare minimum, you don't have to go into the company level details, but you have to like be bullish on a sector. So like I work in healthcare. I'm bullish on telemedicine. That doesn't mean that I'm going to put all my eggs in the Teladoc basket. I know
Right.
that there's other companies that are also involved in there. So guess what? I'm looking for an ETF that's also bullish on telemedicine, right? And guess what? If Kathy Wood has one that's specifically geared towards telemedicine, that gives me diversification and at the same time a level of active research that she has on her team. Yeah, I'm willing to pay a couple of points on management fees so that I don't have to do the legwork of researching every single company. That's the whole purpose of an ETF, as opposed to something like a hedge fund where you're getting just a broad, diverse thing and you're trusting the fund manager to just look for things. So if you want to be actively managed within a sector, that's perfect for sorry guys, just yeah, so
You're good.
that's where you would line yourself up. And there's a ton of ETFs that do it. You can go as granular as possible too. There's some ETFs that only invest in pet healthcare. Like, trust me, they have those, So it back in the day, you would have to try to find a company that you were bullish within a sector that you were bullish on, and then do all your research. Now it's like, hey, you know what? I like pets. Everyone has pets, but I don't want to just buy one pet stock. You know what I want to do? I want to buy an ETF that, manages all that stuff for me. There you go. I'm going to buy that ETF. And that's the kind of logic that I hope people are applying when it comes to ARK, and not just treating them like a mutual fund, like a traditional mutual fund or a hedge fund where they can just park their money and just let the manager grow it. That's it. And now here's the thing. There are times where it's going to have outsized returns, which we clearly saw because innovation was doing amazing for the last 2 years. And right now, innovation is not doing so good. But it's once again up to you to find out a time when you don't want to be in innovation. And I think with a rising rate environment, everyone is cutting back on innovation and going into other areas of safety. So that also, as an investor, kind of goes right on top of what you need to do to make sure that you're safeguarded. So I would say to anyone watching, not to say that you should or you shouldn't, because it's not financial advice, but be selective about the funds that you invest in and diversify yourselves in an ETF also. Don't just say, oh, I just have this one ETF, unless it's like the S&P 500 ETF. That gives you like the entire the broad spectrum of things. But for something like ARK, where they're more niched to innovation, you have to have it a certain percentage of your portfolio, and that's it. Like, limit it. Don't let it become the thing that brings you up, but also can bring you down very fast.
So I want to talk about Coinbase and Teladoc because we got someone on Twitter asking about that. But before that, one thing I want to ask you, Alex, you said 1% of your portfolio if you're a hedge fund or just like a fund that's investing them. But the thing is, they market to retail heavily. So is there anything you feel kind of weird about like they want retail investors to buy it, right? Kind of how do you feel about that?
So for sure, like I definitely agree. I feel like a lot of the companies I invest in actually have started to develop this strange marketing problem, maybe even over just the last like year or so. When I started investing in Ark Invest, I think they were always pretty clear that they were a niche strategy. Not that they thought they should be a niche strategy, right? Like, but that they fundamentally disagreed with the way the indexes were going. They were, they were avoiding value traps while picking winners, but they acknowledged the fact that investing in a tech-first way, even though that all of their stocks technically get lumped in smartly, as you said, into this one category of like hyper volatile growth stock, right? But they did a good job saying, hey, look, we're niche. We're not trying to be the next index. What you should do is you should think about the future. And if you believe in one of these strategies, autonomy, genomics, fintech revolution, whatever, what we do is we do a lot of research. We actually have two groups of people: smart researchers who are technologists. They're not financial people. They're both, right? Like they know how to do the numbers, but they're not the guys managing the money. They're the guys understanding the technology. And then we also have the traditional fund managers who A, control the allocations of our portfolios, but B, help our individual clients with their retirement accounts. Like that messaging used to be super clear, and now it's getting muddied with we expect Teladoc to 10x. Our funds are going to 4x. Like we can't macro sucks, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's a real shame, because I think if they just double down on their initial message of innovation happens, sometimes it takes longer than we expect, but what we do is we make sure you're exposed to the right innovation while ignoring the bad innovation, the value traps, right? Like the people who get deflated away over time. So you don't have to worry about that. Like what you get to do is invest like you have a PhD in artificial intelligence without having one, and you can go to the beach. And what we do is we take a fee, right? Totally agree with you. Their messaging seems to have lost that way. I'm sure we'll end up talking about Palantir, and I'll just, you can play the last 30 seconds of what I just said on loop, because I'm going to have the same argument.
Okay.
That's a shame.
Bitcoin, is it a scam?
I don't think Bitcoin is a scam. I don't agree that you need
Coinbase
to generate...
is a good pick for Ark in the crypto world?
Yeah, for sure. Yep. Mm-hmm. Why?
And...
So I'm not reading a tweet that you might be reading. Like, is there some context you can give me?
Well, someone just asked me ask him what he thinks about Bitcoin. I actually don't know your thoughts on crypto. I do know you're bullish on new ways of financially thinking about the world. Yeah. So I guess I asked you that kind of open-ended. Like, so you're bullish that Coinbase and Ark should have exposure to crypto because decentralized finance is going to be a thing.
Yeah. So let's like, crypto is a big bucket like stocks, right? Like, I don't think all stocks are good. I don't think all crypto are good. So let's at least have like a semi-nuanced conversation about crypto. There's two types of tokens. There's lots of types of tokens, but like ducks and bunnies, there's two types of tokens. There's securities and there's utilities, right? Like, I'm not really interested in securities like Dogecoin, like NFTs, like things where it's like they don't generate cash flow, so I need the next investor to pay more than what I just paid, or you need to like show me some whatever growth plan for how you're going to give me more money than I just put in. If you're a security-based token, I'm not interested. If you're a utility, I'm very interested. If you're running some sort of DeFi platform that solves some real problem, that has some economic value, I care, right? This idea of digital ownership is very powerful. This idea of decentralizing finance is very powerful. This idea of, using blockchain technology in a wide variety of ways for security, proof of stake and proof of work, like these are real economic value generating activities happening on the internet. So you can't say that just because like the blockchain doesn't have cash flows like a company, it's not economically viable. So utility tokens specifically, which Coinbase supports and adds a lot of utility to and takes a lot of friction out of buying, I do believe that Ark Invest has a solid reason to hold Coinbase stock.
Now, the way I think of Coinbase is they're just an exchange that makes money off the fees. Is there a larger, 30-second kind of growth story you see to them as for having exposure?
Yeah, so I definitely do think that's where they are today. That's definitely going to get competed away as, that goes the way of stocks, zero fees and all that. But they also do things like have their own digital wallet. They have their own crypto education. They have a really sleek platform. So like they do invest a lot of time, money, and technology into making crypto frictionless while it still has a lot of friction. So it matters today, and providing alternate solutions for things like, I use MetaMask. I'm sure some people use Trust Wallet, but like Coinbase's wallet solution is actually really good, and they're rolling out a lot of other like crypto adjacent technology that I think will keep them in the space for years to come. And they're really a thought leader in like how crypto should be going mainstream, in my opinion, right? They're kind of like, they're not exactly the Robin Hood of crypto, but like Robin Hood is to stocks, in my opinion, as Coinbase is to crypto, right? Like they've reduced that actual friction, which is a great place to be in.
The other thing is they're providing a service by being somewhat more centralized than other platforms, because if you think about it, you don't really need a middleman to trade cryptos, right? I can trade my Bitcoin to Alex, and Alex can send me some dollars using other payment platforms. But here's the thing: you need a middleman to be that trusting person, right? Otherwise, each of us can get scammed very easily, right? So it's the same thing as stocks. Believe it or not, I can actually take a stock certificate and sell it to you, Amit, and you can give me cash for it. But why don't we do that? Why do we buy and sell on an open market? Because you still need a hybridized central platform in order to make the trades happen. Now, yes, there are others out there, but Coinbase is probably the largest and most trusted. And I think that's why they really fell, because a lot of people were concerned with basically with the news that in case of a bankruptcy, people wouldn't be able to pull their money out. Huh?
That's not why they fell.
Wait, what?
They fell the earnings sucked. The earnings sucked.
No, but that's one of the reasons why. But if you look at some of the news that came out, because even on my
I mean, that to me is FUD, bro. They're not going bankrupt. Like that's why I was like, that's kind of dumb. Like that whole overreaction to it I felt was kind of stupid too. They're not. Coinbase is not going bankrupt.
And see, that's the point that I'm trying to make. That when these fears come and people over rationally sell all their crypto in their Coinbase, right, in their Coinbase wallets, and literally just cash out, what that does is cause a run on Coinbase. I don't know what Coinbase's structure is on maintaining that liquidity. Like, here's a question, Alex, and I have to do more research on it. How does Coinbase hold money in reserve? Like, I'm sure that they're not holding every single thing in reserve, right? Like, they literally have to have something. Like, it's like a bank. If you go to a bank right now and say, hey, I have $1 billion check, can you cash it for me? No, they don't have that. Believe it or not, if you look at the banking system overall, there's actually not enough money for the amount of credit that's out there in the world. So there's I think for every $1, there's only like 30 cents that's actually in existence. The rest of it is just done through thin air. So that's the question that people have when it comes to Coinbase a little bit. Like, okay, how much do you actually have in reserve in terms of assets to support this? So that's why people have bank runs. And I think what we just saw was a Coinbase bank run. Now, I don't know. Like, I trust Coinbase. I have a few cryptos in there, right? But yeah, that's one of the bearish cases on them.
So I'm not going to pretend I know how Coinbase like actually stores or what they store versus like what they just support. I'm a huge fan of Brian Armstrong. I've heard him speak several times now. I really believe in their leadership. I really like the company a lot, as much as I like any crypto exchange. I think if you want to have a stock, but like, what is Coinbase as a financial instrument, right? Like, Coinbase is a way for you to buy an ETF, like a weighted average of the crypto volume that goes through Coinbase, as a stock, right? Like, instead of having to buy crypto to get exposed to crypto, you kind of get it all by buying Coinbase stock. So I think that's pretty cool. And then the company itself has strong management, in my opinion. And then there's this third piece where they actually roll out really cool technology to support crypto, like their wallets and all that kind of stuff. So that's what you really get, like, when you're actually buying into the business of Coinbase, right? Like, I think it's important to remember that it's not just a bet on crypto. It's like a bet on all the business that goes on around crypto, and in a way, a bet on all crypto at once, right? Because of the, how Coinbase collects fees and all that. So it's a much safer bet than going out and buying a Dogecoin or even a Bitcoin, right? We've seen like the collapse of Bitcoin as well. So you're getting all of the benefits of the leadership in addition to that. And obviously you're not exposed to crypto if you think it's a scam. So
and the infrastructure that supports crypto in general. So whether you're buying or selling, Coinbase is making money.
Super chat. Thank you,
Right.
Adam. Shout out against centralized exchanges like Coinbase, Binance, etc. are destroying DeFi with leverage. They're also propping up and bringing in new investors. Centralized exchanges are double-edged swords, good and bad. Yeah, I think we would all agree there's definitely nuances to if they're good or bad.
For sure.
Before we get into Palantir, real quick, Teladoc. You don't need to explain what happened. We all know what happened. But my question is, do you see it kind of getting back to the level and becoming the Amazon of health that Kathy says can be?
So I think it's possible. Like, what I think the thing that really scared me about my Teladoc position and about Teladoc in general is like, so in a nutshell, what Teladoc is trying to do is build a total healthcare ecosystem, right? What does that really mean? That means that they bet there's this big benefit of having all sorts of healthcare under one umbrella. You have this specific mental health problem. We know in the data that that leads to all these other things that only we know because we touch all those other things. That's like the big differentiator between Teladoc and a point solution, for example, a mental health company that only does mental health. So if mental health symptoms are a precursor to some other very physical or biological disease, they might not know about it, or they know about it from the mental health side, but they certainly wouldn't know it if it was something that got brought up in like an academic paper on that disease, right? But what they said at the last earnings call was, hey, we're facing increased competition in all of our like different verticals, mental health, chronic care, and acute, by companies that just do those things, especially mental health. So BetterHelp is fighting a hard battle against lots of much smaller companies that only target mental health. And so the idea there is, let's talk about Amazon for 1 second. What if Amazon was fiercely competing against a Shopify on the e-commerce side and a Microsoft Azure, like it's not exactly a perfect fit on the Amazon Web Services side, and Alexa was fighting hard against Google and blah blah blah, all the things that are true about Amazon, right? Imagine only companies focused on those niches, right, were targeting Amazon. Amazon would probably start saying the same thing on some of these earnings calls. Hey, our Alexa is losing to a company that only builds the Alexa competitors. Our Amazon Web Services are losing to a company that only does cloud computing solutions.
It's why Spotify has survived, because they hyper focus on music and
hyper focus. Yeah, so like the strange bet on Teladoc is all of these, you have one body, right? Like you have one brain, you have one body, it's all connected. And so what Teladoc's bet is unlike Spotify, which benefits from this hyper focus because audio is its own medium, right? Like video is its own medium, books are their own medium. Your body's interconnected, so too should be the healthcare system around it, right? We should be able to track all these things together, and we can get you more information than any one pointed system alone, is the bet that you're making on Teladoc. Whether that's the correct bet remains to be seen in the market, because it turns out companies that only focus on mental health are still pretty good at mental health, right? Like they don't need to take your heartbeat to know that you're stressed. They can see it with mental health, right? Like, so the question is that a real moat? And if not, why are you spending so much money to acquire Livongo? If Livongo's not giving you a competitive advantage, you were doing acute, you bought a company that does chronic, you slam them together to have this competitive advantage of being able to do both, and now you're telling me both sides are losing to different market competitors. Like, why'd you pay that 40% premium for them then, right? Like that's what happened during the last earnings call. They took that big $6.6 billion
so you're
write
not
down.
buying the dip.
I haven't bought the dip yet, but I actually haven't sold a single share of anything. Like, this is a really good opportunity to practice some diamond handing. I only buy companies I'm really comfortable in, right? So like, and I happen to actually be a long-term investor, like, believe it or not. So I'm still in on everything. I'm not sure we've hit the bottom yet either. I know that's probably a hot take at this point, but like, I think we might have just seen a big dead cat bounce Thursday and Friday. I think there's a lot, like Michael Burry came out with a really good tweet that we can talk about, but like, let me pause there and not derail the conversation. I'm happy to talk about it, not talk about it.
So
Chris?
I would say with regards to Teladoc, we're at a point where I think every industry and every industry usually goes through this. You have the highs where you have this initial euphoria because it seems so revolutionary, so innovative, and then guess what happens?
Yeah.
Everything collapses, right?
The hype cycle. Yep.
The hype cycle, and then 90% of everything dies. Guess what's left though? All that infrastructure, all that research, all the technical knowledge,
Absolutely.
all that stuff gets left over. And guess what happens? Whoever survives picks all of that stuff up, integrates it into their company, and they become strong as ever, right? So what we're starting to see in terms of telemedicine is it's not just Teladoc that's taking the hit. It's all these telehealth companies. If you look at their stocks, especially like Amwell, who are actually backed by companies like Google and Microsoft, they've also been decimated. Now, here's what's going to happen. Now you're going to see a phase of consolidation. I'm also seeing this in the cannabis sector where everyone in 2008 there was so much euphoria on cannabis legalization that people bid up stocks to the point where it was literally like crazy valuations. Now, what happened? Well, cannabis didn't get legalized. 90% of everyone disappeared. And the 10% that are left right now have super rock solid balance sheets, have positive cash flow growth, and they're going to weather the storm until it does get legalized. And then they'll 10x and 100x, believe it or not. Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff that you have to look at because every industry comes around and that's what happens. There's this cycle of euphoria that everyone drops their money into. You know, all that capital, believe it or not, goes in and actually serves a purpose. If you look at like the early 1900s, right, when the locomotive first came out, everyone was throwing money into railroads. The United States, like literally, was the railroads were the biggest bubble in I think history at the time. Guess what happened? 90% of all these private rail companies, they all went out of business. But guess what happened? The 10% that were left over were able to buy up all those railroad tracks, all those locomotives are super cheap, and then integrate them into their businesses and become super profitable. So I think with regards to Teladoc, we're probably going to see a very similar thing, but it's going to take a good amount of time. I work in healthcare, and right now we're going through our own cycle of build versus buy, right? Do we try to build our own telehealth services using our own physicians, or do we just contract the business out to somebody else, to a third party who's going to lead patients back into the hospital system if they can't manage it at that local level? Like one of the things that we're always trying to do is do more preventative care, right? Now, how do we do more preventative care? Well, that means that you need to increase access for patients. How do you increase access for patients? Well, you have to have some sort of mechanism to do that. That means that Teladoc can actually provide that healthcare level service to say, hey, listen, we don't just provide physicians, but we can also provide the technology platform for you to actually do that, where you can have your own physicians log on and actually have that part of the business. So I think right now, with regards to Teladoc, I've used Teladoc, like my insurance, which, believe it or not, the gatekeepers aren't the hospital systems, okay? It's actually the insurance companies.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why we're going to see this huge shift towards telemedicine, especially for early care, for like PCP care, is before COVID, a lot of people, especially regulators, were kind of dubious of telemedicine, saying, how effective is this really, right? Because of COVID, everyone was kind of forced into it to say, look, we're going to have to do telemedicine. And guess what? A lot of people realized that, hey, this is actually great, but also it's actually much, much cheaper than trying to get patients to come in, book them, do all the administrative tasks, then get reimbursed for it. It's much harder to do that. So now people are actually starting to say to hospital systems when they come in, hey, listen, do you guys have like a telehealth service? I don't want to come into the hospital. I don't want to take my entire day off just to go to a doctor's office to wait in a waiting room. Why can't I do 90% of everything via telehealth, right? And it's and basically all the other stuff that you need to get assessments done. All that technology was only developed over the last 5 to 10 years. So here's an example. 10 years ago, you couldn't just get your blood pressure. Like people are not going to do their own blood pressure and then read it to a doctor. But guess what? Now you can actually have a device that you can use and that transmits the data over. Here's another really, really good one, Dexcom. Do you know what Dexcom is, Amit?
Chris, we got
Do you have any
to move on, bro. We got to move on to the next
Yeah.
topic.
Oh, yeah. Another time. But yeah. So telemedicine right now is just starting to become more ubiquitous, and I think what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of consolidation in the industry, and Teladoc has the ability to survive, and so they'll take the lion's share of that. In which case, I do think eventually they get back to their highs.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're going to see the consolidation in a lot of industries because interest rates are up, which means it's hard to get loans, and stock prices are down for a lot of these growth stocks, which means it's hard to get public funding, right? So it's like the people who are burning their entire cash pile in the next 12 to 18 months are going to die out, and the businesses who have good management are going to swoop in, buy them for cheap, and grow like crazy. Couldn't agree more.
You know who Chris reminds me of? He's like Chamath on the Olin podcast. When he starts talking, like he'll just go. He'll just keep going. And I love it,
man. Like, yeah.
I love it too. It's just like, fuck, we gotta move on too. And that's why Jason has to do the moderating. That's what the moderating thing is hard sometimes. Because I love it when Chris keeps going on his shit. It's just we gotta keep moving on.
Yeah, it's a good take.
Yeah, Tdoc is definitely something to be very interesting to see in the future. Tickersymbolyou, thank you for the super chat, Adam. This is for you. Are you into hymns? Any thoughts on this?
I am not. Sorry. I feel bad.
So, yeah, I thought Hims was like a clothing brand or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
That's what I thought it was too. Is it not?
Chris, you know anything about
No. Hims is okay. Hims is the erectile dysfunction. So Viagra went generic, right? And Cialis, all the ED pills went generic. So what Hims does is provide you the ability to like log on and do a telehealth visit and get boner pills quickly, so you don't have to do that in-person visit to a physician.
How did you know?
Hey. It's because I research.
No.
I don't need them.
You know someone who definitely gives me erectile dysfunction?
Who?
This person, Strongman Personal Finance.
Nah, dude, I love this guy. I love him, dude.
I love this guy awesome, too. Man. But do you know this guy, Tickersymbolyou? Alex, do you know this guy at all?
No.
No? Okay.
I like the channel name though. Yeah, like what's
Richard, I think his name is Richard Bell, all right? He is a Boglehead investor. Dude, I follow him. I watch his videos all the time, dude.
Cool.
This is a guy who basically just he makes fun of Jeremy and Meet Kevin every single day on his channel. That's like his channel.
I love it already. You know, like I definitely have strong opinions on those guys. Like, so cool. Yeah. Sounds like a great channel.
Just wanted to see if you know him. Freelance Financer says, Chris, you definitely need some erectile dysfunction pills. So, yeah, you gotta get those. All right, topic of the hour: Palantir. What did you not like about the earnings call?
So I actually just didn't like the earnings call. Right, so their earnings calls come off super scripted. They avoided a lot of questions, so they avoided a lot of direct questions. They hid numbers from people, and let me be very specific about what I mean. They had numbers in previous investor relations decks that they took out of this deck and didn't talk about, which would have provided a lot of clarity into, you know, things like their net retention rate and a couple other things that we saw go down. For example, their adjusted operational margins, right? So adjusted for like things like taxes and stock-based compensation. And yeah, I honestly just thought for how different the numbers were and how different their short-term guidance is, 25% revenue growth, from their long-term guidance of 30% revenue growth, those things deserve to be explained, especially when in the Q&A session they get asked, and then you read off some scripted answer that doesn't answer the question, right? So like definitely as a big shareholder of Palantir, thought that it was a very bad look. And then on top of it, like I'm working on a video right now, not to tease my own channel on your channel, that is literally straight up, I'm going to write a better shareholder letter than Alex Karp for Palantir. Like, that shareholder letter
That's gonna be fun.
Is hot garbage, right? I think that was one of the most insulting letters I've ever read.
Wait, why?
As a shareholder,
why do you think that? Why?
Because it spends, so like, all right, so there's several really good rules about writing that like, and communication in general, right? You want to be very clear. You want to get to the point. You don't want to waste anyone's time, especially your shareholders, whose time is probably pretty valuable, right? Like, and you want to make a few things clear about the company. What you probably don't want to do is talk about German philosophy. What you probably don't want to do is compare yourself directly to your competitors and be like, no, we're much smarter than them, but no one gets it. What you definitely don't want to do is tell your shareholders that you don't understand your customers' short-term needs and that they don't understand what you do as a company, right? Like Alex Karp did all of those things in the 7 sections of the shareholder letter. And for that reason, I think this letter is the worst shareholder letter I have ever read. And I say that as a guy who loves Palantir, who understands what they do, who strongly believes in their mission, who believes that they're solving problems the right way with their ontology model. You know, they're server agnostic. They do a lot of things great, but they don't explain any of that. And then when they have the chance to explain it, they do this type of stuff instead, the type of stuff that you're highlighting on the screen right now. So it's very frustrating because, like, of course they're not capturing market share. Of course people don't understand what they do. Like, look at their marketing. Look at the people who are passionate about the stock. Like, how many of their own shareholders really understand what they do? And it's like, that's nobody's fault but Palantir's. And that's super frustrating when, like, it's up to the YouTube community, and they even acknowledge this, to, like, kind of explain for them, hey, this is, like, what they do, why they do it, who they do it for, why it's a good company to invest in, you know, why the short term is like this, but the long term is like that. I really love and respect them, but at the same time, it's super frustrating being one of those guys who's like, I guess I'll just explain it then, right? Like, that's a bad look.
Chris,
that's how I really feel about it.
The numbers of the earnings call. I know you hated the presentation. Were there any numbers that really upset you, like adjusted operating margins or projected growth?
Is that a question for Chris?
No, that's for you, and then we're gonna get to Chris.
Oh, you know what? I honestly think it was just the operational margins going down to 26 and then 20 next Q2, I believe, if I remember right. I don't have it up in front of me. I think that deserves an explanation. It sounds like the explanation. I can't remember if that's adjusted for, like, the sales team or not. I'm, like, blanking on, like, where that line is. But if, like, even if it's just, hey, we're really growing the sales team, call it out, explain it, right? Like, you know, we really need those numbers. And then net dollar retention, I think somebody on Twitter tweeted me after saying my analysis of the net dollar retention was wrong. That's a great call out. Like, but they used to break that out and explain, here it is for government, here it is for commercial. And I love seeing that. Why am I getting that from someone on Twitter instead of Palantir, right? Like,
right.
So.
Okay, so the overall, the presentation you kind of didn't like, but the actual numbers, the hiding of some of the numbers wasn't cool, but, like, the growth in general wasn't horrible to you. It was a decent quarter, you could say.
I think it was a low quarter, but it was like a low quarter in context is a decent quarter, I guess. Like, you know, if the government's slowing down spending, like, it's the same problem, right? I don't know if it was a decent quarter because they didn't put those lower numbers in context, right? Like,
right. The answer to this super chat, what's the most similar company Palantir? It's the one that Chris brought up and made everyone on Reddit go crazy. It's called Data Walk. All right, Chris, your thoughts on what Alex said. Alex called it the worst shareholder letter ever. What are your thoughts?
I think I agree with Alex to the point where I don't think that was a shareholder letter. That didn't look like a shareholder letter. That looked like, I don't know, some kind of, like, shady, just something written on a napkin that they said, you know what, let's just put it. Yeah, exactly. Like, he could have just said, Dear Diary, and just wrote the rest of the stuff, and it would have been the same
That's
thing.
right. That's right.
You know? Like, Dear Diary, today Palantir is gonna do more to save the world because blah 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 in German. Like, dude, if a shareholder letters are supposed to give you confidence about the company and what they're doing, give you some metrics on if you really need them to say, look, we're planning on growing using this thing. Like, if you read a real shareholder letter, they're supposed to bring confidence into your psyche. I don't think that built a lot of confidence. If anything, that was like a cryptic message, you know. So I don't know. I think Alex Karp, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, he's a great CEO, we love him. I think he's a great person. I would love to have a beer with him, but would I want him to manage my business? Probably not. Like, I'll be honest. I just lately, over the last probably year and a half, I've been a little bit more skeptical of Alex Karp as a CEO. Now, that's not to say I don't believe in the company Palantir itself. I looked at their technology, and their technology is amazing, right? But I've seen plenty of technologies that are amazing that have terrible leadership at the top, and that's always dragged that company into the ground, right? So it's not to say that Palantir is bad as a company, but I don't necessarily see Alex Karp and even Sham as great leaders that are going to be able to carry Palantir into the next thing. Yes, they may have nurtured the ideas really well and got a lot of great programmers and developers to create these really interesting and amazing tools. But what they need right now is someone like Tim Cook. Okay. If you look at Apple and the success story behind Apple, Apple was very successful because they had this visionary in Steve Jobs, but they also in the background had people like Tim Cook managing all the supply chains, managing the business elements that made the dream possible. There's so many people out there, like, and that's the same thing with Elon Musk. Elon Musk can dream a lot, but it's these guys that aren't necessarily like spoken about in the background that are actually making things happen. You think Elon Musk is there designing every aspect of the Tesla? No. What he's doing is saying, look, I have this vision, I have this dream. I need to find the people that are going to be able to help carry that forward, right? But then also have the business acumen to say, like, hey, we need to go in this direction and maybe we shouldn't go into this direction, right? So I think we're at a point right now where the inadequacies of Alex Karp and Sham are starting to bubble up. The problem is with Palantir is in a traditional company, if you have underperformance, the board can just vote you out and say, look, we need to get a new CEO. We need to get a new CFO. We need to get a new COO because we're pivoting to a point where we're no longer in research and development mode. We're in scale mode. So there's plenty of people out there who've been able to successfully scale companies to the multi-billion-dollar and trillion-dollar levels. Let's get those industry experts that have been in software for a long time, who've proven themselves, and put them in the position to make the company grow. So in this case, Palantir can't do that. Palantir is kind of beholden to its what is that thing called? To its F-class shares, right?
Yeah, Class F shares. Yep, the founder class.
So now, and believe it or not, because of that, a lot of funds don't even want to put money into Palantir. They say, yeah, I like the technology. They're in the same boat as I am, but they actually want to have some say in management to say, hey, look, we're not just going to do things, based on Alex Karp's whims. We're actually going to do things because they make business sense. So I don't know. When it comes to Palantir, I'm going to give it another year or two. I believe in the technology. I think it's a great company. I think they have a lot of great people working for it, but I haven't nearly seen the level of leadership experience needed to take Palantir to that next level. And if they don't shape up to the point where I think that they're going to be able to carry Palantir into the future, I'll sell out. I'm not one to hold on to a losing horse just because, I've committed to it. So I'll be the first one to tell you guys, like, sometimes you have to drop some stocks like a rock,
I think the bittersweet part for me is Palantir's technology, I think, is truly incredible. Like, they solve some really hard problems that matter. Like just being able to swap, like, oh, we can't use AWS anymore. Take your whole ontology and put it on top of Snowflake instead, for example. Like, that's an incredible solution, right? I think, and my channel focuses on technology specifically, right? So to be forced to sell out because Palantir has a marketing problem they can't solve, like, they're scaling up marketing, but their marketing is sort of this like very clever, nobody really understands us, we're the smartest kid in the school, like, type marketing, instead of the very clear, like, here's the 3 or 4 problems we solve and why this matters to your business directly. Like, let us show you and reduce the time to value, from years to days. Like, I'm going to be really salty if I have to sell out of a great technology because they have a marketing problem. I totally acknowledge everything you just said, Chris, and totally agree. And it's like, that's what makes me like so salty, is like the technology is there. It's the marketing that's not, right.
Yeah.
Case in point, the shareholder letter, right? Like, which is a piece of marketing. Like, do not let that fool you. A shareholder letter that's posted on your website from the CEO about the company and what it stands for and its mission and how that connects to its operations and strategy and tactics is a piece of marketing. Like,
I think both of you are wrong. Dead wrong on this question.
Okay.
You guys don't get visionary leadership at all. Especially you. That rant you just went on was ridiculous. Look, when someone ends their shareholder letter by saying this is our time and we intend to seize it, you trust that mother effer. You say, all right, bro, you got no. Hold on, Chris. Alex Karp has created a philosophy around the company. I'm pretty sure. I know you and Alex, you're super deep into tech, but that philosophy, if that wasn't there, we're not investing in this company. Like, straight up. We're just not. We're not investing because of digital twins. I mean, some people are, but you need a lot of the marketing and the philosophy there. If their go-to-market strategy is fundamentally different than a Snowflake or than a Datadog or whatever, then they need that philosophy. They need that. They need that level of marketing. Now, I get your argument. Execution and sales, that's a really difficult thing to do. But like, if you say you're going to hold it for 1 or 2 years and then get it out of there, no, man. Like, this is if we really do think this is Tesla of data, we've got to give it time to develop, and we also really got to let them live out the philosophy. If people got out of Tesla from 2013 to 2019, 6 years, they would have missed it. Right? Like, there's something here about this whole change the world to sustainable energy, all that stuff, right? You had to buy into that philosophy, and then Elon executed. I don't think the philosophy of Palantir has changed. I don't think the idea that the world's getting less chaotic has changed. I don't think the idea that data analytics and data growing exponentially, our $85 trillion market has changed. So the philosophy is legit, and we should trust the philosophy.
So I absolutely agree with everything you just said, except what Elon Musk did differently is he was very clear about how that philosophy connects to what Tesla does, why they do it, how they do it, right? Like, and he goes into those details. Look, dude, a big part of the change to sustainability needs to happen in transport and in home power. So we're going to build, power, like electric powertrains that are very, very efficient. We're going to have very low drag cars, and we're going to make them sexy so people actually buy them, right? And then we're going to build this thing called the Powerwall and Power Pack using the same exact technology, because we understand that homes use dirty power today, and we can at least store that power better, and blah, 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 right? Through his secret plan part 1, secret plan part 2, AI day, battery day. Like, he goes on stage a lot, and he's very clear about, here's the connection between this mission of transition to sustainability and the strategic, operational, and tactical things we're doing to get us there. The changes we're making to the gigafactories, the changes we're making to the Model X, Y, 3, and S, right? Like, blah, 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 blah. We don't get any of that from Alex Karp today, right? Like,
what do you mean?
There's no connection from this German philosophy
idea of ontology. What are you talking about? They're literally
hold
protecting
on, one
the
second.
Ukrainian government. Like, how does the data analytics they're providing to Ukraine, how does that not have to do with the philosophy?
Just one question, Amit, for you. What does ontology mean?
So philosophically, ontology is the state of being, right? So when Palantir, and this is one of the things I got into them deep in November. First of all, I was one of the only YouTubers talking about ontology in November. The state of being of your organization requires a centralized understanding, literally philosophically, of your data in one place, right? And then there's technical elements to how they're able to execute an ontology layer of abstraction within your data. That stuff is exactly correlated to Palantir's entire mission that was in that shareholder letter, which I thought was beautifully written. I thought it was poetry, where they're talking about this idea that they have a competitive advantage, that Snowflake, there's a reason why Snowflake is not powering the Lithuanian-Ukrainian refugee process. Agreed? There's a reason. That reason is because Palantir and ontology, and you can add a bunch of other words of what the stuff they're doing in the tech and the philosophy, aligns with that mission. If we believe the TAM of that is really big because data is really big, I don't get why we're stressing it. I don't get why we would sell it after a year or two.
So I again agree with everything you just said, and maybe there is a time and place where you can be like, look, let's talk about Palantir's culture. Let's talk about how like this ontology view helps us solve real problems in free speech and media, and let's look at an ontology together. Here's an example case. We won't share exactly. Like, we've stripped it away so we can talk about it, but like, look, we're really showing censorship versus free speech here, and blah 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 blah. I agree with that. But at some point, Alex Karp needs to put his big boy marketer hat on, walk on a stage on an AI day or a battery day or whatever, and be like, guys, we make maps of business data, and here's why that matters. Here's what you get when you look at things in this map view called an ontology, and here's what this network reveals that you don't get any other way. Forget the philosophy. Here's the nuts and bolts of what our software does. We're going to walk you through a clear example.
Why does that sell more than what he's doing now, especially when you're working
because
with
people, if you're not going to buy a product you don't understand, dude, period. Like, no matter how sexy it sounds, like, it sounds esoteric. People want to cross the street, and it sounds like you're selling them a UFO. Like, people just want to know you're going to solve their problem. And that shareholder letter doesn't tell you that.
And Amit, what you just said right now, I hope later on you play it back to some of your friends, some of the other people that are out there, and see if they got anything from that. Because That's the problem. That is really hard to explain what an ontology is, and they haven't really figured out a good way to just get the rest of the people to understand it. And I think that's a hard thing to do, but they need to do that, and they need to figure it out quick, because otherwise, a lot of companies right now. And the other thing, this is the thing that I don't like, when they say, "Well, we have this technology that's 5 years ahead of time." Guess what? If I'm a CEO of a company and you come to me with that sales pitch, I'll be like, well, come back in 5 years when I'm going to need it. I don't need it right now.
They even say that in this shareholder letter. There's a big tension between what we think the customer needs tomorrow and what they identify as their needs today. It's like, how like on the nose can you be?
First of all, this is a good comment. This is a good comment here. I see what you're saying, but first of all, they say ontology is not a technical term, or there's not a philosophical term. It's a technical term. So first of all, that's the first thing. It's not just all pure philosophy. Second of all, freelance finance says we don't need poetry, man. We need mission, execution, and profits. I think you're wrong on this. For a company like Palantir, you do need the poetry. Guys, why? Hold on. Why?
I don't agree.
Why doesn't Datadog have the same hype that Palantir has, or Snowflake? There's nothing to them other than the pure, like, there's out of the box SaaS. Like, hold on. Do we think Snowflake?
You mean that they make money?
Yeah, like,
no.
why does Warren Buffett not hold Palantir? Why is he buying Snowflake? Like,
hold on.
I don't know, man, because they can actually execute, right? Like,
no, that's a horrible argument. First of all, Warren Buffett didn't even buy Google. Okay, you tell me the best investor in the world couldn't see that. Hold on, no, but the best investor in the world in 2009 couldn't see that people were gonna search shit. Now, there's no disrespect to Warren Buffett. That's not his style of investing, right? I get it. He's a Kraft Heinz type of, I need profits off of assets that you own, all that stuff. But my point is, Snowflake, we don't think is going to become $1 trillion company. None of us here think Snowflake's going to become $1 trillion company. We think Palantir is, right? I've seen many videos of both of you saying, I think Palantir could become $1 trillion company. Why did you think that?
I definitely still think that. So I think the technology is there, but you can't become $1 trillion company if you don't do good marketing. You cannot. You can't.
But the poetry is the marketing. That's my point.
It's not. I'm telling you point blank, it's not working. It's not working. Nobody knows what this company does.
Look,
YouTubers need to explain it.
Wait.
Right?
So how would you market Palantir instead? Just go on a stage and say we have data?
Listen, they actually did it during this earnings call, and they had this beautiful analogy, and we should be talking about it, right? It's 2004. It's the era of MapQuest. You're trying to get somewhere. What do? You download and print map data, and you start driving, one hand on the steering wheel, one hand on a map. It sucks. The roads are wrong. You can't do anything about it because the map's not dynamic. Palantir gives you an in-car map. It shows you an aerial view of your data, this map, between where you are today and your destination, right? That's called the ontology. We should talk about what that means, blah, blah. They said that on the earnings call, actually, right? Like, in the voice hack of the earnings call.
Let me do it how Palantir does it right now. Our goal isn't to get you from point A to point B. It's to get you from point A to point D without you even noticing that you needed to get to point B. So guess what? Just go straight to point D. Okay?
First of all,
we know better than you do, right?
Hey, I'm interested. I'm interested in that. That sounds dope.
Like, which part? The point D? Like,
dude, first of all, I'm interested in Chris's D, but second of all, no, I'm interested in how you get from point A to point D. No, why does Snowflake not have level 5 clearance with the DoD? Why does Palantir have that?
Because they don't need it.
They don't need it, man. Like, they're just not trying to do that. Like, the thing that people are forgetting about this level 5, level 6 clearance, you know who else has it? Oracle and Microsoft, right? Like, Palantir is not competing against nobody. They're competing against the hardest, biggest companies in the world. Like, full stop. You know?
Wait, but that's why we're investing in that. So Snowflake's not, like, let's say, a direct competitor in the same way Palantir is to Microsoft Oracle.
Correct.
Well,
yeah.
That's why the upside isn't there. They're also really already richly valued at growing 100% year over year. My point is, I understand they have to do better marketing, but we're betting on them because of this philosophy. No one would bet on Tesla if it was.
I am absolutely not betting on them about this philosophy, and I want to be super clear. That's not why I'm betting on them. Like, I'm not taking your side on this. I don't agree. That's not why I bet on them.
So why aren't you putting your money into Snowflake? Hold on, why aren't you putting your money into Snowflake that's growing 100%?
Because Snowflake doesn't build ontologies. Because Palantir has good technology. It's not their philosophy.
Why can't Snowflake
just figure
out how to build ontologies one day? They've already got the relationships, the data.
Dude, if they did that tomorrow with their good, clear marketing, if they're like, hey guys, we solved the Palantir problem, we build really good ontologies now, I'm bailing on Palantir. Because Snowflake can also tell you what they do and how they do it. Like, Palantir needs to sell to customers. Palantir needs new business. Like, every company needs new business. Tesla's marketing is word of mouth, right? Tesla still puts out great YouTube videos that are like, guys, we build the best batteries in the world and we build factories that build these cars better than anyone else. Elon Musk gets on stage and tells you what Tesla does. Alex Karp needs to stop quoting Theodore Adorno and needs to start explaining ontologies to people.
I think he can do both is my point. And I think
he can do both. I absolutely agree. I'm willing to take the Theodore Adorno if he goes into a separate room and says, guys, an ontology is just a map of your data and it like really helps you out a lot. Like,
yeah.
Chris, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I think Palantir right now, they're trying to sell you a dream. I'm trying to buy a business. That's what I keep seeing right now.
Exactly.
Like, dude, you have the technology. Sell me the business. Don't sell me a dream. Like, dude, trust me, there's plenty of people out there right now that are selling dreams. Dreams are great, and someday I hope they come true for you, but trust me, I'm trying to buy a business. Right now, I am in Palantir because, just like Alex, I believe in the technology. What I don't like is that they're still like trying to sell a dream about it. Just, dude. And here's the thing. There isn't an unlimited amount of time where their technology is going to be superior. Yeah, they're 5 years ahead of time right now, but given the opportunity, guess what? Everyone else is going to catch up. You think Databricks isn't trying to figure out the same problems and create solutions that Palantir has and become a Palantir competitor with much better marketing and a better partnership profile? Dude, after 17 years, they've still got triple-digit numbers in terms of clients, where these other companies have 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 clients,
yeah, but
right?
That's not fair. They started 5 years ago in the commercial. Come on, like let's not strawman this thing.
Databricks started after Palantir started. Snowflake started after Palantir started. Why are they so far ahead in terms of business operations?
They are. Like, I will say that. Sorry, I talked over you. What was that?
Why is Databricks not catching Osama bin Laden? They're Palantir.
I agree with you. Like, Amit, we all agree that Palantir can do things nobody else can. What Palantir needs to do is sit down and explain that to people. Nobody's arguing Palantir isn't special, man. Like, but that can't be their marketing is we're special, trust us. Like, you know what I mean? The marketing has to be clear, not clever. Like, yeah, Elon Musk doesn't go, we build the best cars, just trust me. Like, he goes, guys, like, we figured out that consumer battery technology is better than pouches, so we build it this way. We figured out that the real efficiency happens at the gigafactory level, so here's exactly how we're changing the gigafactories. And we figured out that we can do things with camera only, so we save you all the money because we don't use LiDARs or radars anymore. Here's how. Literally, AI Day. Let's walk you through step by step how the data gets from the camera to the brain of the supercomputer back into the car. Literally, that's all that talk was, right? Like, here it is. Here's the actual data and how we're solving this problem. By the way, we have to solve it for every car, not just our own car, because just like humans need to predict when other cars do it, that's what we're doing under the hood. That's what the HydroNet is, like blah, 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 right? Like, he literally sat down and had Andre explain it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what's getting lost here.
That's what the Apollo demo day was. They broke it down step by step. So are you saying, because I think we all agree they have explained ontology and all this other stuff, is your argument that in the sales relationship building, because that I would agree with, they probably aren't the best at that, but like on a macro, I think they have explained their company. I don't think we would disagree.
I feel like that's a fair statement. Like, they definitely Foundry demo day, Apollo demo day. Like, if you're a smart, I think there is one more disconnect that I'm not giving them enough credit for. It seems that their actual marketing strategy, and I'm happy to go over, I don't know what your time limit is.
No, you're good.
Is to market directly to like the systems administrator, right? The guy who's like going to be using Palantir at the creation level, not just the guy who's reading the reports or the executive who needs to like grab a whole bunch of reports and have people brief him, but the guy like doing the creation and implementation. But that guy's not very often the guy holding the purse strings. That's the problem. Like, that's the user, but not the person you need to market to. Person you need to market to is like the group leader, the business development guy. Not the business development guy, but like the business accountant for a group, right? Like the guy who's like, yeah, we'll buy that solution and implement it, and here's the guy who implements it. So like, there's a big disconnect between how technical the person who's using it is and the person who's buying it is. And that's the problem, is like, Palantir needs to be marketing to the people who buy it, not the people who use it. Like,
the one thing I don't like about Palantir right now and the way that they're doing their marketing, there's no free version. There's no developer version where you could just log in and do a playground. Every single software company right now, whether it's CRM, you just go into Salesforce, they let you have a sandbox, a playground. Go ahead. Our technology is superior. Play with it. See what you think. In like a few months, I was just explaining right before this to Alex how I like UiPath. Well, guess what? We got UiPath Studio. We ran a pilot. We did it all ourselves, and now we have enterprise contract with them. Palantir doesn't do that. It's so weird. Like, you can sell me a whole bunch of dreams, but if I don't have a physical product in front of me which I can play with, trust me.
Let me take the other side of that argument, just because this is where I bet I can take the other side and really explain it. Even if they don't do that, what they should do is have a pilot program where they're like, here's what we'll do. You have a small problem. We're going to port it into Palantir and show you over the next couple of weeks how we can drastically reduce the time to value to solving that problem, right? Let's ingest your data, look at it together, spend a couple of weeks and iron out the kinks, and show you that what you took years to build the solution for, we can do in weeks, right? And if you believe us on this little chunk, we'll show you how we did it, and then you can see how that applies to the rest of the problem. You're going to want Foundry, right? We had a lot of that when I worked at MIT, where it was like this big signal analysis chain, and solving it for the first time was very hard. And then it's like, well, once you built it once, you kind of understood the scope of the whole problem. If we had a Palantir say, hey, we'll clean up this one first thing for you, and then it's like, well, whatever you have behind it, we'll just use the same tools to do that too, we would buy Palantir. You know what I mean? All of a sudden, you're showing us that the tools we have not only are insufficient, but there's a tool out there that actually does what we imagine it would, right? They don't need a free version. They just need a way to show you what Palantir can actually do, right?
If they don't get government, if they don't get government, they don't become $1 trillion company, right?
If they
don't scale the government business the next 10 years, they don't become $1 trillion company, right? It can't just be commercial. Because my point is, it feels like they need the sticky revenue from the government, which means that's where the philosophy makes sense to me. You're not selling this stuff to Europe unless you have this underlying philosophical idea of data privacy, ethics, protecting Western democracy.
Why?
Because protecting Western democracies is something that Snowflake's not doing.
I agree with Snowflake, but I mean, that's a Twitter problem. You know how Elon Musk is protecting free speech? He's buying Twitter, right? Palantir would be really useful for Twitter, which is not a government.
I'll tell you right now,
if the government is $60 billion and Palantir needs to capture that, they need to have a story, right?
Listen, you don't necessarily need to have this entire thing we're all about Western. Do you know who protects Western democracy? Microsoft. Why? Because Microsoft provides Office suite, Office services to the entire world right now, into the West. Let's say right now to the U.S. government. I think the U.S. government isn't using Excel, PowerPoint, and everything else.
That's a very reductive argument to my.
But what I'm trying to tell you is that you can't just rely on that one philosophy to just base your entire company ethos, right? You have to expand beyond that. That's what I'm trying to say.
I feel I don't get the argument for why they haven't. If we said they can do both and they have government and commercial, and I agree with you guys. I'll concede to that. Commercial, they got to be way more targeted at actually explaining it. But if the government TAM is pretty freaking big, and this is the best way to penetrate this is why
I don't think that's the best way. Every time I've been pitched on philosophy, we never go with that product. I worked in government for 8 years. I've been involved in procurement. Nobody pitches us philosophy. This is something that this shareholder letter is not how they're pitching the government. It's not. They're going in there and they're showing people a drastic reduction in time to value. They're not going in and saying, we protect Western philosophy, we believe in free speech, we're better than these other Silicon Valley companies, and we quote Theodore Adorno. That's not what they do. It's a shitty shareholder letter. It doesn't make any sense. It's not anywhere else in their marketing material. And it's philosophy that's not rooted in what they actually do. It's just not. You know what I mean?
the other thing is the government never wants to become overly reliant on one company for anything. So guess what? You're always going to have other competitors and other people coming out. Like, name $1 trillion defense contractor that works exclusively with the government.
Yeah.
There's none. There's none. You know, even though you think that TAM is unlimited for the government side, without commercial, you'll never get to that trillion. Never.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I also think that the Lithuania doesn't call on them to manage Poland refugees, or Poland does. Like, I think that happens because there's a mystique about Palantir. I'm not saying pie in the sky dream. I'm just saying there's a reason they didn't go to some of these other companies to do data ontology around Ukrainian refugees. They went to Palantir.
The thing that my problem with your argument isn't that it's wrong, it's that it's muddled. It's not the mystique that they're going to Palantir for. It's because of this ontology thing. Like, you know what I mean? The mystique is like it's the packaging, right? Like, it's the iPhone box. But people don't buy an iPhone for the box. Like, we can talk about the lifestyle and whatever, but at the end of the day, it's very clear what an iPhone does. Like, it's not very clear to the average consumer, to the average investor, to the average technologist, and to the average IT guy what Palantir does. Full stop. Once we have the vocabulary established, hey, here's this ontology view, here's all the things you can do about it, here's all the special parts about graph theory. Now let's build a philosophy on that, right? Hey, if you put all of the tweets into this ontology format, you can quickly see who bots are because their part of the network looks very different, right? Like, their DMs to tweet ratio, their retweet to tweet ratio, like the amount of fraudulent claims, the amount of emails with one email to many handles or whatever, you can pull that out of this ontology. So let's like make a firm stance on free speech around looking at this Twitter data and deciding what's right. Let's map the rules of moderation to, the First Amendment, what it protects and doesn't protect, and then show you in this ontology view how we can click a few buttons and literally set up a policy to reflect that on all the data for Twitter. Now you're connecting the big picture of, hey, free speech is important, blah, 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 to the low-level tactical, like, social network, no kidding, people talking out of place, and the data they're generating when they do it. Like, I agree with you. There is this cool philosophical argument about managing big data. Alex Karp did not make that connection anywhere in his shareholder letter. He just didn't. You made that connection. Like,
Steve Jobs cared about the box.
Yeah.
I mean,
Steve Jobs, experience of the product. Like,
Steve Jobs was really good at designing that box, and I'm telling you, Alex Karp is not. Steve Jobs was great at making that box.
I mean, there is one.
It was a good box.
There is one time that I saw Palantir do amazing with marketing, and that was around their meta constellation. That is exactly what you needed. We need to find submarines around the world. We have a system that does that. It's called meta constellation. We track the submarines that are going from A to Z, and we're actually able to track it. That video, if that is what was the standard for the rest of the stuff that they do, dude, Palantir would be set, like, literally every company right now would be going after Palantir saying, hey, we need you right now. That meta constellation video was amazing.
Because, hold on, both of you contradict your own argument. If Microsoft's already working with the government, if Oracle's already in there, how do you penetrate? If Salesforce and CRM, if all these guys already have,
because they're not trying to solve the same issues.
Yeah, it's not the same.
But to some extent, Microsoft can do maybe not a full ontology, but I'm sure they can sell some deviation of things. They can convince them Palantir is not that necessary. I don't think you penetrate a market. It's almost like a consumer social app. What did TikTok do? They built a philosophy around being authentic and not trying to be the prettiest version of yourself. Now, did they build good features and new vertical format? Yes, those are the technical things. But there was a big philosophy around, there was a huge philosophy that when you come to TikTok, it's not about building a social graph on your friends because their algorithm's going to show you to random people. It's about being entertaining. That's a philosophy first and foremost.
I agree with you. I don't disagree with anything you just said, but TikTok's marketing is not about their philosophy. Right? It's about funny explosions and cat videos.
Their whole marketing is be authentic.
That's right. That's the end of their marketing. Is just those two words. They've distilled their marketing into two words. Be authentic. Here's a funny cat video, right? Like, it's not
so you just
everything you just said. Huh?
You just don't like German philosophers being quoted. Like that's the issue that you
here's what I want. I'll tell you specifically exactly what I want. I don't want to make this nebulous argument. I'm just mad to be mad. Like I'm an unsatisfiable shareholder. That's not what I want. And I'm going to make a video that gives people what I think a good shareholder letter should have been, right? Here's what I want. 7 sections. First one's about philosophy. Second, philosophy being specifically mission, vision, purpose, right? Second one, strategy. Here's how we're going to enact our philosophy. I agree with you. Data matters, big picture, state of the world is screwed up, chaos, we thrive in chaos, we're Palantir. Section 2, here's how we thrive. Here's exactly our strategy for government and our strategy for commercial. Here's how they're different. Section 3, operationally, here's what this means for you and your data, right? When you get your data in, here's what needs to happen for you to have this big ontological view without saying the word ontology, right? Of the data, right? Like here's what your business needs. We recognize you don't understand that today. So let's spend a section or two walking you through what this buys you tomorrow and how you can build on it in a way that meets your needs today. Not we don't understand needs, but we do understand your needs. And in spite of that, we're telling you, if you course correct a little bit, you can have your cake today and still eat it tomorrow in the following ways because of this ontology. 5, we have the following features that you build on top of the ontology that solves these real world problems that are there right now. And 6, here are the things we're doing to capture that. Now that I've shown you we have the solution, here's how we're course correcting and fixing in the future because we haven't been doing a good job capturing the market that we know we should own because we're Palantir. And we're not Snowflake, right? Like, that's what we needed out of that letter.
I have the perfect slogan for them. If they want to take it, I'll give it to you guys. Solving tomorrow's problems today.
Yeah, or like, yeah, however you want. Yeah, exactly. That's a great slogan. And like that maps their mission back to what there's a solution, there's like I love that. That is the vision of what Palantir does for sure. We see into the future and we solve the future today, right? Like I agree. Yeah. I agree that their philosophy kicks ass, man. I'm not disagreeing that they don't need a philosophy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying they're doing a horrible job conveying that into their actual products and services.
Yeah. And again, to be fair, I really don't disagree with both of what you guys are saying in terms of execution of just telling the story, especially in sales and like, you know, when you're talking with an enterprise client, you're not going to say, well, the philosophical nature of the ontology. You're like, no, like time to value, all that. I totally get that. I'm just saying the mystique for investing into the company and even thinking that they have the Tesla of data potential for me, and this is my bias towards philosophy and communication, is not just the twin, whatever they call them.
Yeah, digital twin ontology.
Digital twins. To me, it's this idea because I think we're investing in ideas that have products, but their products are wrapped in these beautiful ribbon and bow ideas that they could one day, which is why exclusively they don't work with Russia and China and all the other Microsoft and Googles they do, right? They could exclusively protect the world in the crazy times of needs, which is why when COVID happened, there was one company that was being asked to manage a lot of the vaccine distribution. That was Palantir. Was the ontology stuff the reason why on a technical level? Yes. But the reason I think they were approached also has to do with their philosophical preposition towards these types of problems. I don't think that's the only reason they become a $1 trillion company. I get you guys. You got to have the tech. I'm just saying it's what adds to the story. It's what makes the story fun. If Elon's not tweeting all day, Tesla's not that fun. Elon says he doesn't spend money on marketing. No, every single tweet you do is marketing. We gotta understand the story a little bit, even though I agree they suck on sales because they're not adding as many customers as they should be for an
I respect that take, and I don't agree with it. I respect your, like, you want to invest in mystique, and you like the allure of, like, hey, like, I understand a lot about the company, but there's still so much I don't understand, and therefore, I think it's this big, and it must be even bigger. Like, I understand that attraction. I respect that. I am a nuts and bolts investor. I want to know that Tesla's batteries are actually chemically different and superior to their peers. I want to know, like, you know what tweets really matter to me when Elon Musk tweets? He's like, we just lowered the drag coefficient of our cars by 0.01. Like, but that Alex, tells me his head's in the right place, right?
How can you do full nuts and bolts if you're in Ark? Because a lot of Ark is selling a dream. Like,
That's
A lot
not
of
true.
hold on. A lot.
That's
You
not
think
true.
Teladoc is not selling a dream at some level? Like
No.
You're betting on the potential. You don't think Shopify, like it's at some level. Coinbase. We literally don't know if America comes out tomorrow and says screw crypto, it's banned, like China did. Coinbase, in and of itself, is a idea that blockchain technologies are
It's
here to
not.
survive.
It's not.
You-
Those
at
things are
some
delivering
level,
economic value today. No, I don't
What
agree
do you
with
mean
that.
economic? If you invested in crypto 2 weeks ago, you have half of your economic value today.
If you invested in
invest in
crypto
the
5
movement-
years ago, you're a millionaire. What are you talking about? Like,
No, but
I'm
so
here
that's
for
my
5
point.
years, not 2 weeks.
Okay, but hold on, that's my point. 5 years ago, you're I don't know, millionaire. 5 months ago, you're homeless. So like at some level, this is very volatile, right? So there's
Yeah.
still a dream associated with. You're telling me crypto's a done thing. 2030, it's here. No matter what.
I absolutely, yes. If you're putting my feet to the fire, I guarantee you that crypto in some shape or form, blockchain technology is here to stay.
Okay, now is it going to be what Kathy Wood says, $1 million per Bitcoin? Can you guarantee that?
I've never guaranteed that. No.
Okay. So that's my. So crypto's going to be here, guaranteed. Bitcoin not at $1 million, definitely not guaranteed. Why
Okay.
is betting on crypto at that point not a dream? At some level.
Wait, hold on one second.
Philosophy
Let me just.
of decentralized finance.
Like
How is that
that's
not-
it. Bitcoin has to hit $1 million or the thesis breaks. Like, dude,
Well, hold on,
Bitcoin's
hold on.
at like 30,000 right now. That's a 30x. Like,
Hold on,
Amit,
hold
there's.
on. Give me a second. I got.
what?
What if Bitcoin only gets to 60,000 by 2030?
Why is it about the value of Bitcoin? Why is the value the only
because
driver
you just
for?
said you're a nuts and bolts type of guy, and that means numbers, right? So if Bitcoin only 2x's over 8 years, then the philosophy sucked.
Well, so okay. First of all, that's not the nuts and bolts, right? Like the nuts and bolts is Bitcoin is a finite resource with a lot more demand coming down the pipe, right? Like
Which means it should be more than 60K. Not to cut you off, but if it's finite resource, that means it should give you more than a 2x.
mathematically, I agree with that. Yes, I believe it will more than 2x from here.
Let's say it doesn't. Just like hypothetically, let's say Palantir doesn't become big. If that's the case, why are you betting on Ark Coinbase? Like, why are you betting on Coinbase? You believe there's an idea, a philosophy around decentralizing finance, getting rid of the middleman, and you believe in the nuts and bolts of what Coinbase has to offer. And so does Cap.
Yeah.
So why is that not correlated at all with the Palantir mystique and dream of?
Oh, sure. I'll tell you, because Coinbase doesn't make all their money on Bitcoin, right? Like, in fact, it's becoming a smaller and smaller percentage of their overall revenue. So even if I'm wrong about Bitcoin, I'm de-risked because Coinbase's revenue is actually spread out along more and more cryptocurrencies every year.
Wait, hold on.
Coinbase is more diverse. Coinbase
is extremely diversified.
No,
Yeah.
but Coinbase makes revenue. I'm sorry to cut you off, Chris, but me and Alex got this.
You're good. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The reason Coinbase was going crazy 2021 January was because Bitcoin was at 50K, and they make I don't know what the percentage is fee. Let's just say 5%. I might be wrong.
Sure. Yeah.
On the transaction. Now Bitcoin crashed.
Yeah.
So Coinbase's transaction volume, as per their earnings, was down. I think 2016.
Totally. Absolutely. Yep.
Because the price of Bitcoin, which they take a percentage off, goes down, which means the percentage they get is down. So if there's not another cryptocurrency that's worth as much as Bitcoin, which there's not, that means on Ethereum, off a $2,000 coin, they're making, I don't know, a couple $100. On Bitcoin, they were making a couple $1,000s. So Bitcoin is absolutely correlated to the success of Coinbase. It is
but it's not, right?
in the world.
Because the transaction volume on Ethereum was like a gajillion. Like, I'm making this number up, so let me just say a gajillion. But like, the multiples on Ethereum transaction is way higher, right? Like, it's not a 1-to-1 because Palantir is one stock, and if they have one problem, it's a problem for the whole company. If one cryptocurrency goes away tomorrow, Coinbase is absolutely fine, right? Like, are they going to take a big hit if it's Ethereum and Bitcoin? Sure. But if like Dogecoin goes away tomorrow, it's like, yeah, I'm not too worried for Coinbase, right? Like,
Think of Coinbase as an infrastructure company that's enabling all the transactions between a lot of these cryptos. Don't think of it as something else. There's actual physical, like,
brick and mortar. Yeah.
brick and mortar there.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if crypto goes to shit, the whole dream of Coinbase is over.
Sure, but crypto has to go to shit, right? So now you're making an argument like gold is going to shit, right? Like an entire asset class is going to shit. You're right. If, like, no kidding, crypto ends up being a bust and we say all blockchain has this fundamental flaw tomorrow, my Coinbase thesis breaks.
And
that's true.
I don't think that's ever going to happen because there's too many smart people right now investing time, energy, and resources into it. If crypto was a fraud, it would have been revealed way long ago, and you wouldn't have the likes of Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Kathy Wood, like every single investor, Jack Dorsey, who's built entire companies from literally the ground
Yeah.
to where they are right now. If it was a fraud, they would have put it out there already.
And
No,
I want
I'm
to be super clear. I want to be super clear. There are frauds in crypto.
Right.
I'm not saying there's no fraud in crypto. I'm saying all crypto as an asset class together is not a fraudulent asset class.
Yeah, I
Big
agree.
difference. Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm
okay.
not saying crypto is going to go to shit either. I'm just saying we did see one of the biggest coins, Terra Luna, just go to absolute shit.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Remember when Nikola was worth $93 billion?
Yeah.
Like, it happens in stocks, right? Like, stocks are not scams. There are scams in stocks.
So
Theranos,
you don't think there's
right?
any philosophy around Ark at all?
Can you
As in
clarify
you're
that?
investing
I obviously
in
don't
Ark.
think that, right? Like,
I'm sorry, wrong question. You're investing in Ark purely because of the nuts and bolts of their companies, nothing to do with.
I invest, yes, and I'm very clear about that on my channel, right? I'm not trying to sell dreams. People, like, I think this is one of the things that, and I hate pumping my channel, right? But, like, I'm not here because
First of all,
of
shout out
dreams, right?
270 people in the chat. Everyone check out Alex's channel. Is amazing channel on crypto, on YouTube, on finance, all that stuff. Go ahead, Alex.
But, like, yeah, great. So, like, but the thing is, I like Ark Invest research, right? I'm here because they talk about the Bitcoin hash rate. I'm here because they talk about the cost of genome sequencing falling year over year faster than Moore's Law, right? Like, I'm not here to tell you cancer is going to get solved tomorrow, but I am telling you the costs to research it and diagnose it are falling faster than a doubling every 2 years, right? Like, nuts and bolts, not dreams. Yes, I am firmly in the not dreams camp. Like, or only dreams that can be realized by the actual nuts and bolts, right? Like, the actual, like, hey, because of these costs, look how many tests you can run in parallel now because it's cheap enough. Now let's talk about multi-cancer diagnostics and screening and whatever, right? Like, nuts and bolts for sure.
And I think that's where I am with Palantir. I think the nuts and bolts will execute or manifest the vision of the dream, but I think the dream is important to get you in there. But I think that it's a double-edged sword in terms of how you ultimately approach it at the end of the day. But for you, it's totally the ontologies and the twin.
Absolutely. That's all I talk about, right? Like, when I talk about, what do I talk about? I talk about what Palantir does, and that's it, right? Like, you know, yeah. But, like, houses aren't built on dreams, right? Like, they're built on nuts, bolts, wood, right? Like, and then you fulfill your dreams by owning a home. You turn that house into a home. But, like, fundamentally, you're building a house. I'm not hiring a contractor for a dream. I need him to build me a house, right?
But what you said at the end is very important, Chris. It was the last thing I'll say is we bought a new house, my mom, in December 2020. Great time to buy a house, by the way. And she had a dream in September to get a new house, and she executed in 3 months, like actually getting this new house. But you needed the dream, right? And then it's like you need the creative vision. And I understand this as well because I was talking to her the other day. You need the creative vision and then you need the analytical capabilities to execute against that vision. Otherwise, you have nothing. But if you only have analytical capabilities, then you're boring. You have nothing to strive towards. And I think Elon has both, right?
I think investing should be pretty boring. I think it's the tech that makes it interesting. I don't invest in dreams. You know, like, I have at least a 5-year time horizon. I'm going to throw this out there, guys. Like, I actually invest mostly in private companies and real estate for this exact reason. Like, that there's no dream there, right? Like, and sorry, not seed stage, but like late stage private, because it's like, what do those guys just need? We're executing a mission and all we need is money. Like, all we're trying to do is hire the last few people, cinch this shit down and go full X until we're public. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think when the Fed put in all this money into the market started selling dreams because people were buying them. And that was the fatal flaw of stimmy checks and quantitative easing, is people started buying dreams instead of fixing their real nuts and bolts problems.
One of the things I will say is that I don't want to, maybe another time, I was going to say we are headed probably into a really, really rough patch when it comes to the housing sector, only because we have a lot of overhang when it comes to these low interest rates. And I'll go into what the reasons why. I think there is a lifetime opportunity. There's another opportunity coming in terms of real estate where I hope a lot of people are saving liquid cash. I know that everyone's like, oh, don't hold on to cash because cash is getting devalued every day by every year by 8%. Bullshit. Right now, the goal that everyone should have, especially in my age group, which is in like early 30s, save as much as you can, keep it in liquid cash, because there are some really, really good opportunities coming in real estate in the next 2-3 years that literally are going to like knock your socks off. And you're going to be like, holy shit, I wish I had the liquid capital right now to throw at this. So maybe we can do another podcast about real estate and our thoughts on that. But yeah, just because you mentioned real estate, Alex, we could talk about that another time.
For sure, yeah. I'd be happy to. I think one of the things, like, and again, I want to be sensitive of your time, but I'll just say this, like, one of the big things we're not talking about with Palantir when they write letters like this is opportunity cost. Like, where's your next dollar going? And after you read this letter, tell me it's not going to be in a company like Snowflake that has like triple-digit CAGR, or Microsoft, which is down 30% off all-time highs, and is a very productive, fundamentally awesome company. When I see these quotes about German philosophy and things like that, my next dollar is going into Microsoft or Snowflake, right? Like, I only have so much money, and this is the thing that scares me into a safer bet with better marketing and still fundamentally good technology, right? Like,
and the people who sell dreams, normally they're con men or cult leaders.
I don't think
I don't think that's true here.
Yeah,
I want to, on the record, I don't think Alex Karp is a con man.
I don't think so either. But I'm just saying, usually the people that are trying to sell you dreams and sell you ideas
I agree. I just don't think Palantir. I think they're selling a technology wrapped in a very unique idea.
I agree with Amit on this one for sure. And I'm sorry, Chris. No one's saying that you said Palantir is a scam, but like, I think the marketing needs to shape up.
No, right? That's what I'm trying to say. That right now you're coming off like you're a con man based on what you're trying to put out there into the world. Your marketing makes you look like a con man. I'm not saying you are. I'm just saying your marketing is making you look like a con man.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. So when it comes to opportunity cost, hey, I only have $1,000. Whatever. I have a small portfolio. Where am I putting it? I read that shareholder letter. Maybe it doesn't all go into Palantir, right? Like,
this was fun, guys. Thank you to the 270. Can we get some likes on this video? I think we deserve it. Can we, everyone, all 274 of you, subscribe to Alex? You probably already are, to be honest. And Chris, and hopefully my channel. I hope you guys enjoyed it.
Dude, shout outs to the comment section, man. Like, I was grinning the entire time because there were some amazing comments coming through the entire time. It was great. Had a great time.
Alex, do you know this Kelly chick at all?
No. Oh, I had our tab on private chat. I haven't seen any comments. I didn't realize it was like, hopefully people were commenting on my awesome hair.
He's literally been saying you're such a great communicator throughout the whole chat. So I think she likes you. So that's awesome. A lot of people have said you won the debate. That's for sure. I think I got like one person who's like, no, Amit's right. Everyone's like, Amit, Alex is beating you. Alex is
Dude, I got to trademark that motto, bro. I know someone at Palantir is like, yo, we got to get this done. I'm going to trademark it tonight. If it doesn't already exist. I'm sure someone already came up with that.
Yeah, this was fun. Freelance Finance also said Alex won. The cool thing about me is I did debate in high school, as you know, Alex. So that's kind of why I poked the bear a little bit.
I think that's awesome, man. And I think you're a great communicator. I think you do a great job for the Palantir community. And I want to be super clear, like, I'm super pumped that you have this vision about what Palantir can be. And I think that Palantir really needs to reflect that, right? Like, one thing you're great at doing is telling, hey, Palantir could solve this problem this way, right? I watch a lot of your videos. What if Palantir got involved in this? What if? And I think Palantir needs to take some of that messaging and say, here's how we could help solve that problem. If you have a business like this, reach out to us, right? Like, you're doing a lot of that great marketing for them, man. Like, your channel kills it.
And that's why
Palantir Daily kills it too. Like,
yeah, I was complaining on the pod yesterday that they don't acknowledge us at all. I mean, they really don't. They don't even retweet us. So it's like, for me, I kind of feel like, and I'm not shilling.
I think they can't because of SEC compliance and things like that. But
right, like, but Elon can go say whatever the hell. That's the part where it's confusing. It's like, all right.
I totally agree.
For me, I think my purpose is to sometimes put a little bit of a background on Amit, because Amit comes off so bright. I have to dim him down a little bit and be like, listen, everything is not just roses and rainbows.
People hate Chris in the chat.
And then people hate me, but it's okay. I'm okay with. See, that's why I'm Darth Vader right there, bro.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, we got to end it here. Excellent. Okay. My 5-year-old Aiden is listening. Happy Aiden. I'm happy you're listening to this intense conversation, because hopefully you'll make a lot of money as you grow up listening more to these conversations and learn about investing. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know it's a Friday or Saturday night, 11:30. Hope you could have done a lot of other things. You watched this, all 200 of you. Appreciate it. We'll see you.
Dude, we're all in the tri-state area. We should grab a beer one of these days, especially because I'm in New York most of the time. You're in Jersey. You're in Jersey. Let's grab a
I'm
beer
actually in Florida, but I'll fly up
Florida,
and
okay.
grab a beer with you.
Yeah.
Well, we'll definitely get a beer eventually.
That would be great.
And we'll talk about German philosophy while we're drunk. That'll be.
I know a guy who'd love to join. Another Alex.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right, guys.
Later, guys. Take
Thanks
care.
for having me. It's been a
Yeah,
blast.
thanks for being on, Alex.